The translucent snowflake resting atop the Himalayas and sleeping within the frozen glaciers for millennia actually witnessed, a long, long time ago, the most blistering sunrise over tropical seas. This sounds like an unprovable, absurd myth, yet within the cold and rigorous laws of meteorology, it is the most monumental romantic destiny from which no single water molecule can ever escape. She possesses no fixed physical shell, nor can she truly stop her steps for even a single moment, yet she turns every instance of her fragmentation and dissipation into a gentle miracle that nourishes all living things. A cloud's journey, from Pacific water vapor to Himalayan snow, she traversed tens of thousands of kilometers of vast mountains and seas, achieving an ultimate reconciliation of life between the freezing cold and the scorching heat. Tonight, let us accompany the gently flickering firelight and this story you need not effortfully memorize, to walk together into her true lifetime. Throughout this incredibly prolonged, gentle, and lonely trajectory of wandering, there is no daytime anxiety or impetuosity, only the purest breath and tranquility of nature accompanied by the whistling wind and the falling rain. The first fracture of the story occurs in the center of a boundless, untroubled tropical ocean. It was an exceptionally sultry afternoon. The sunlight poured unreservedly onto the Pacific Sea surface, which was smooth as a mirror, vaporizing the upper layer of the water until it felt slightly hot. Countless water molecules, tiny to the point of near invisibility, under the constant catalysis of heat, finally bid farewell to their companions, breaking free from Ocean Mother's broad and heavy blue embrace. Silently, they transformed into wisps of transparent water vapor. Taking incredibly light steps, they began to slowly drift upward toward the azure sky. At this stage, she had neither a name nor a form, remaining merely an utterly insignificant speck of atmospheric dust within this grand epic of the water cycle. As the altitude continuously climbed, the roar of the ocean waves, the cries of seabirds, and the tropical clamor receded inch by inch beneath her feet, until they were completely sealed away in the world thousands of meters below. The air in the high skies began to grow increasingly thin, and the temperature dropped with a restrained and relentless rigor at a precise rate of 0.6 carat /circ/text c $1 for every 100 meters of ascent. By the time she ascended to a height of approximately 2,000 meters, the ambient temperature had fallen to the critical threshold sufficient to trigger her metamorphosis. The once isolated, transparent water molecules began to slow down their running paces in the freezing air, gently recondensing around tiny cores of sea salt brought from various parts of the ocean. Myriads of minuscule liquid droplets clustered together, finally morphing under the afternoon breeze into a visible, incredibly soft, and pure white brand new form, that was a cumulus cloud just born in the vast blue sky. Resembling a bundle of cotton woven from nature's purest veil, she floated quietly in the void, beginning her first silent breath as a cloud. The sunset over the sea tinted her white edges with a layer of soft, low-saturation dim gold. She looked down at the deep blue ocean that had nurtured her, her expression carrying a trace of calm and certainty toward the unknown. The newly born cloud was free, yet her fate was always tightly gripped by an invisible, colossal hand of the atmosphere. That was the grand symphony woven jointly by Earth's rotation and solar radiation, the monsoon. Bearing an irreversible sense of destiny, it began pushing her slowly toward the northwest. She drifted through vast bands of warm, humid air currents. Along her wandering journey, countless water molecules from other maritime regions continuously integrated into her body. Her size grew increasingly massive and her skirt folds became heavier, her once light posture gradually revealing a dense restraint in the 10,000-meter-high skies. Across thousands of kilometers of void stretching from the Pacific to the edge of the Asian continent, she witnessed the soft and quiet play of light and shadow during countless alternations of sunrise and sunset. However, the coastline of the continent soon faintly emerged on the horizon. The complex terrain of the windward slope brought this wanderer the first truly severe compression of her life. As the colossal monsoon swept her forward to collide against the edge of the earth, the undulating mountains forced her to continue climbing up the steep slopes into higher, colder altitudes. The altitude increased, and the surrounding air, like freezing iron pincers, ruthlessly compressed her already saturated body, until her internal equilibrium finally approached the brink of breaking. The white body of the cloud began to turn gray and dim under the merciless orographic lift. That was not anger, but a profound quietude and endurance when life was about to bear its absolute limit. At a certain moment, the temperature in the valley plummeted. The countless tiny water droplets inside her could no longer resist the call of gravity. They collided and coalesced into heavy raindrops. A heavy downpour poured down silently at the edge of the continent in the deep of the night. Accompanied by the regular, rhythmic white noise of falling rain, she gently returned a portion of her body to this unfamiliar land. She lost nearly half her weight, her body becoming light again though somewhat tattered, yet she did not linger over the rivers below, choosing instead to follow the high-altitude trade winds, journeying lonely toward the deeper hinterland of the continent. Having passed through the numerous obstacles of the coastline, the Cloud entered a long and quiet period of wandering within the continental interior. By this time, she was no longer that initially plump, rounded cumulus cloud, but had transformed into a sheet of stratus cloud stretching for hundreds of kilometers across the high sky. Her posture grew increasingly refined and elegant, like a thin veil spread lazily over the heads of 10,000 households, shielding the people on Earth from the overly scorching daytime sun. During this phase, she learned to engage in silent dialogues with various air currents over the land. Through a long stretch of time akin to half a century, she endured the cruel baking of rising heatwaves above arid deserts. That baking caused a massive evaporation of the moisture within her. Her body once became extremely thin and near transparent, as if she might completely dissipate into the empty blue sky at any moment, yet she never completely vanished. Whenever night fell and the Earth's temperature receded, she would silently absorb the faint wisps of water vapor rising from the surface in the quiet night sky, rescuing her tattered garments. This survival struggle, pulling back and forth between dissipation and restructuring much like human logic, fostered within her a deep yet highly restrained attachment to this continent. She watched the warm yellow lights kindle in the ancient villages below, and watched those lights extinguish one by one. In the deep night, while she remained merely a silent onlooker, time at an altitude of 10,000 meters lost the urgency it holds on land. The shifting of eras and the changing of dynasties manifested here simply as subtle alterations in the colors of the surface vegetation. She no longer chased the grand magnificence of the ocean surface, nor did she fear her own fragmentation. Through a long wandering of 10,000 kilometers, she became increasingly pure and certain, for she could faintly sense that, at the end of the wind, the final destination of her life standing in the center of spacetime was slowly rising on the edge of the horizon. That is the most spectacular and merciless geographical miracle on Earth, a massive scar traversing the center of the Asian continent, the Himalayas. When the Cloud arrived here following the last of the westerly air currents, she faced the roof of the world, a freezing realm standing over 8,000 meters high like a colossal wall of steel. The air here is dry and piercing, locked year-round in a biting cold of dozens of degrees below zero, entirely devoid of the warmth or human trace found upon the plains. This was a definitive collision that truly transcended the limits of ordinary imagination. The most stinging yet monumental moment of fate she had to confront after a lifetime of wandering, the massive mountain completely sealed off her last line of retreat. A powerful updraft, like an invisible giant hand, hurled her fragile body ruthlessly into that extremely cold high altitude nearing the stratosphere. At that altitude, conventional laws of physics underwent a transformation akin to a miracle. Because the temperature was so low, the remaining water molecules inside her did not even have time to revert into liquid raindrops. Under the needle pricks of extreme cold, they sublimated directly within the void into countless exquisite, hexagonal, minuscule ice crystals, a delicate raiment carved for her by nature at life's terminus. The once soft, flowing cloud, under the cold gaze of the roof of the world, completely solidified at this instant, turning into a stark white snow cloud filled with geometric aestheticism. She floated gracefully above the sharp, majestic peaks of Mount Everest, the final afterglow of the setting sun tinting her remaining skirt folds with an utterly lonely twilight blue. At this moment, there was no pain, no struggle, only a grand sense of destiny that had seen through the disillusionment of mountains and rivers, quietly suffusing the freezing silence. She knew her long journey had reached its true end. She would use her final purity to execute the gentlest curtain call in this continental wandering across thousands of miles. After enduring a 10,000-kilometer wander and experiencing countless segmentations and restructurings, that long confession enacted upon the roof of the world finally arrived at its ultimate landing. Countless hexagonal ice crystals, in the windless, freezing night sky, began falling across the heavens at an exceedingly slow speed that was near static. Gently, silently, they descended upon the ancient glaciers of the Himalayas stretching for thousands of miles, completing the deepest reunion with companions who had slept for centuries. A Cloud's journey, from Pacific water vapor to Himalayan snow, she answered all ultimate riddles regarding the cycle of life mentioned in the prologue. She laid down all burdens and forms of being a cloud, completely integrating into this most secure and embracing white wasteland, returning into a solid glacier of the purest For the next few centuries, or even millennia, she will lie quietly here, insulated from the clamor of the mortal world, untouched by the rise and fall of temperatures, enjoying nature's most ultimate eternal tranquility, until one spring many, many years from now, when a ray of warm sunshine awakens this glacier once more, she will transform again into a droplet of clear spring water, flowing gently down the steep valley to restart the next great, endless cycle of life the world has completely quieted down. The sound of the wind outside is weaving together with the ice and snow of this story to create a most secure and reassuring dim play of light and shadow in your room. There is no need to ponder where the journey's end lies, nor to worry about which way tomorrow's wind will blow. You only need to attune to the most regular, prolonged water breath of the Earth's surface, completely relaxing your body. The story has slowly touched down, that interstellar lullaby woven from the whistling wind and the falling snow is gently echoing in your mind. Please close your eyes, and peacefully sink into this deepest, most tranquil dreamland woven for you by the entire planet.